Lovely. Everybody should be coming in. Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Whitaker-Jones. I head up marketing and PR at Watkins. I'm just going to spotlight Carmel. We're so happy that you guys could all join. You should be automatically muted as soon as you enter in, which is fine. That's so that we can make sure that we hear Carmel. But we will be monitoring the chat feature of today's event. The fantastic, wonderful Rachel Gladman, who is our marketing executive, will be monitoring it, as will I. So please feel free to leave any questions that you would like to ask Carmel in the chat. I'm going to write something in here so that you guys can see where it pops up. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Great, wonderful. So we're just going to go through our natural flow, and today's event is going to be filled with some wonderful readings from In Praise of Aging, which is Carmel's book. I'm also going to spotlight myself so that you guys can see me. There you go. So In Praise of Aging, so you guys can all see this. So we'll have some lovely readings from the book, as well as some questions that we have pre-prepared, but then there'll be lots of time for questions for you all at the end. So let me just take a moment. A few people are going to filter in. It usually takes about 2 minutes for people to filter in, but we're so happy to see all of your happy, smiling faces. And thank you guys for joining us today.
And I'm so happy to see so many friends and relatives. Lovely.
Carmel, can you see them up at the top there?
Yeah, I can
Lovely.
see who's here.
Good.
Yeah, delighted.
So Joan, you will not, you have to turn your mic on in order for folks to hear you, because you're automatically muted when you come in to the event. So, but you'll have lots of time to ask Carmel any question you want. So I'm just waiting for Rachel to come in as well. Lovely. This is so amazing to see so many people here. Great. Okay, well, Carmel, I am going to start with your permission, just because we'll have a few people filtering in. So welcome, everybody. Just introduced this fantastic book, drawing on the insights of Buddhism. In Praise of Aging invites the reader to meet the challenges of growing older with an open mind in order to age with grace, understanding, and wisdom. Written by Israeli human rights lawyer Carmel Shalev, who specialized in bioethics, including end-of-life care, the book looks at the current cultural context of youth versus age and weaves the author's personal experiences of her own and her parents' aging with ancient Buddhist wisdom that accepts growing older as a natural process. All phenomena appear, fade, and disappear. So too our lives proceed from birth to death. The 4 parts of the book address reality, vulnerability, identity, and meaning. We can acknowledge reality, see the impermanence of the weakening body, and accept that we are subject to aging, sickness, and death. But we also must deal with the social prejudices against aging that bring new vulnerabilities, such as the questions of identity that arise when we retire from the workforce. This fantastic book shows that it is nonetheless in our hands to shape our place in the world and find meaning as elders with love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Aging indeed has its hardships, yet we have a choice how to relate to our experience, with animosity or forgiveness, with animosity or friendliness. If we can open our minds to aging with a compassionate, curious, and courageous heart, we can find treasures of wisdom to share as our heritage to future generations. Carmel, can you please share what led you to write this fantastic, phenomenal book?
Yes, well, the fact is that I wrote it after I retired at the age of 60 from my professional life. And as you were reading this, I also recalled that I met the Dharma for the first time when I was in a midlife crisis, and I went on a meditation retreat in a convent outside Jerusalem. And then it was just meditation, but I kept on practicing and kept on listening, and eventually even took a study course. Once I retired, I moved to a lovely village here in the countryside, and I took a study course in England at an institution that's called Bodhi College, which draws upon early Buddhist teachings to give us a philosophical and ethical framework for living good lives, essentially. And also after I retired, I was involved in a movement called Wisdom of Aging, a local movement where we used to just meet in circles, groups of people, and investigate our experiences of aging with the wisdom of the Dharma. So eventually this book came out of all the notes that I took while I was preparing those groups and while I was studying at Bodhi College. And it's a fruit of that process.
That's absolutely incredible, Carmel. We're very, very lucky to have this book, and we're very lucky to have you. With your permission, I would love to ask you to read an excerpt from Illness, which is, one of the core chapters of this book.
Yes, well, of course, many of the chapters are relevant all the time, but I chose Illness because we're in times of Corona, and I didn't imagine a plague at that time. But this is what I can share with you. In the process of change that is aging, we happen upon the frailty of the body. Even if we sleep well, exercise regularly, eat healthy foods and watch our weight, avoid stress and sit in meditation all day long, we are still growing old, for that is the nature of things. The biosystems of the body lose their harmony, organs malfunction, abilities decline, and tempo slackens. We become prone more than ever to disease, while recovery is often slow and incomplete. Even when we are young, sickness is unpleasant and entails physical suffering and emotional discontent. All the more so in our old age, when it mingles with a fear of approaching death. Slowly and surely, this is reality. Slowly and surely the body weakens. Wounds take longer to heal. Bones become brittle and fragile. Muscles stiffen. The force of vitality runs out. No one wants to lose their cognition. No one wants to be dependent on others for their basic daily functions. And no one really wants to end up in a nursing home. But by virtue of modern medicine, these circumstances can be expected for many in their final days or years. As my dear friend and teacher Toru Gonen once wrote, aging is the birth canal of death. And she meant it not as a metaphor. She says, the pressure in the birth canal of death is physical. And whether or not there is life after death, we are caught in the throes of a metamorphosis, as if we are being born through narrow straits into some new and unknown state, while at the same time suffering pangs of giving birth as we let go of the body that has carried us in the world throughout our lives. From the moment we are born into the world, we hope to age and are bound to die. Whether we like it or not, the natural process takes place. We can continue to avert our gaze, deny, keep silent, but that may not be the most skillful way to preserve our precious energy. I may need to release the self-delusion that I'm not old at all, or the wishful thinking that even if I am, I can be mended. We place trust, faith, and hope in the world of medicine. It conjures miracles and wonders, but it does not know how to cure aging or overcome death. We have an ambiguous relationship with the body. Most of the time we depend on it as if it were invincible. We are confused if it fails and breaks down, and terrified by its vulnerability. And at the same time, we recoil from its materiality. On the one hand, we know no other form of existence than this embodied one. And on the other hand, we are alienated from the body. We need to befriend it with care, pay attention to it, listen closely, and know its strengths and weaknesses as it changes and disintegrates. What is the bodily sensation you're experiencing in this moment? This body that can walk, stand, sit, and lie down is wondrous. What is it like to feel life in it? There's no need to analyze or verbalize what you are feeling. Just try to listen to the body from within. Allow yourselves to be a breathing body, nothing more, and know this moment of being alive.
That was phenomenal, Carmel. That was utterly eloquent. And you know, this comment just came in from Ruthie. She says to listen, to be present. I mean, this is just such an important subject matter, and your voice in speaking to it with such care and authority and love is just phenomenal. I wanted to ask you, you share in your book that in the West, we are used to thinking that death is a momentary event that happens when the heart stops beating or the lungs stop breathing or the autonomous parts of the brain stop functioning. But dying is a process, not an instant. Can you elaborate on that further?
Yes, let's continue from aging as a birth canal of death, so that there is a process of deterioration, a slow deterioration in the body until death. And it's very difficult to tell where aging ends and dying begins, for example. But even after death, and I'm not referring to any belief in an afterlife right now, but even after death, in the first, in one of the major discourses that are attributed to Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha, where he outlines what mindfulness meditation is. One of the chapters, or the last chapter in the practice of mindfulness, according to this discourse, this teaching of Gautama, is to go to the charnel grounds. And so the charnel grounds are places where bodies are not buried, but are left above ground to decompose. And the practice is to go and sit there and contemplate the various stages of the decomposition of the body, which he actually describes in detail, something like 12 or 13 stages of the deterioration, the decomposition of the body. And of course, even in modern medicine, we can die, but we can still live on life support. So what is life support? Is that being alive, or is it dying, or is it being dead? Or how come that we can transplant organs from people who have died? We also know from many people, because of life-saving medicine, many people speak of near-death experiences in which there is some kind of awareness that leaves the body. In the Tibetan tradition, they actually sit with the body for 7 weeks after the last breath, and to follow it in the passage from the realm of the living to the realm of the dead, while the mind separates from the body until it is ready to find repose in another body, which is the belief in rebirth. Now, I don't believe in rebirth. It's not my upbringing. But I do find that I think that we are all facing this mystery of what happens to the spirit after, or the soul, or the mind.
Absolutely.
We,
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in other words, I think that it probably is a process. That's what I think. Certainly, it's a process in the dying, and I'm assuming from all this wisdom that there's also some kind of process after what we call the moment of death.
Oh, absolutely. I hope so. Now, another section of your book that I felt was particularly timely was the section on loneliness. So I would love for you, if you'd be willing to read a little bit from that section as well.
Yes, I will, but before that, I'd actually like to speak a bit about it, because
Sure.
it's become the issue of loneliness, and the hardship of loneliness has really been exacerbated by the conditions of the pandemic that we're living through. But even before that, loneliness is considered to be a widespread social malady, even epidemic, of aging nowadays. And I believe that in the UK, they even have a ministry for loneliness. It's the blight of old age in contemporary society. And it's because of a variety of reasons. We have single households, never before could people live alone. It's because of the technology and the infrastructure. And we also have a culture of anti-aging, with the devaluation of aging people, and also the social exclusion of aging people. And then also, as part of the natural process of aging, there is a withdrawal and a retirement from life, so that we are far less socially engaged than we were when we were younger. And then, of course, as we age, we experience orphanhood, the loss of orphanhood and widowhood, and then we lose peers and we lose siblings. And now comes the corona with the social distancing. Very, very challenging outer conditions. So now that I read this chapter, I think that there is something I didn't really appreciate until now. And that is how much we actually need each other's. We need each other. We need others. We need their physical presence. We need their touch. We need their support. So, but loneliness is not just a matter of outer conditions. It's also a subjective state of mind. It's an emotional attitude. We can be alone with ourselves and perfectly happy without feeling lonely, and we can be alone with others and feel terribly lonely. So I'd like to address this. Is there time, Laura, to read a little?
Absolutely, there's time. Please, Carmel, I would love for you to read.
Okay.
That would be amazing.
Okay. Okay, so here we go. We have a notion that we exist as independent selves, essentially separate from all the other people in the world. Most of the time, I am the center of the world and all the rest are somewhere else out there. We are so self-involved that we fail to grasp the fact that others feel exactly the same, that they are the center of the world and separate from all the rest. I can be angry with a friend who hasn't called for a long time without acknowledging that I haven't called her either. Our lives unfold at all times in connection and relation to changing circumstances, including the coming and going of other people exactly like myself. We think that the self is a solid and separate essence, and there are moments when it feels like there is a huge abyss between us and them. But this is an illusion. The pain of alienation, estrangement, and not belonging is grounded in a false sense of the self that objectifies others as separate, discrete objects. Martin Buber called this an I-it attitude and spoke of the alternative, I-thou attitude that enhances our connectedness. Yes, we are all alone. We are born alone, die alone, and live alone in a bubble of a life story that no one but us knows for real. We roam alone in the world in a flow of changing sets of conditions and circumstances that form the sum of our lives. Yet, were it not for us, this particular moment that is experienced by this mind-body would not exist. As we witness the moment, we bring it to life. And if we open our hearts to it, we find we are free to make choices.
That is so powerful, Carmel. That's absolutely phenomenal. You say within the book that loneliness arises from the feeling of not belonging, and yet we can also embrace aloneness as solitude, an uplifting experience away from the maddening crowd. How have you filled moments of solitude? And do you consider solitude an opportunity for personal growth?
Yes, well, you know, many great teachers have spoken about solitude. Gautama suggested that we go and sit at the root of a tree. Rabbi Nachman said that we should go into the forest. I myself had a teacher, one of my teachers, who, when I was in a bit of a depression, said to me, go and be in nature. And I think that we all know about how when we go into nature, whether it's to the beach or to a park, how we just expand and it fills us with joy. So that's really the joy of being alone. So solitude is the joy of being alone. And now, not to say that anything is foolproof in life. I myself went through quite a bout of loneliness, actually, a few weeks ago with many other people because of the corona. But what we learn is to just bear with it patiently and compassionately and wait, because it too will pass and then the light will shine again.
It's such an important conversation right now. I mean, being aware of our own loneliness, being aware of others' loneliness. And I think that everything that you have discussed tonight and everything that you have to share in your book is just so profoundly on point and moving and eye-opening, because you know, I certainly have had my own experiences, as have so many I know, where you reach out to somebody and you think, gosh, I haven't heard from you in forever, and you feel a bit slighted that they haven't reached out. But then, you know, you realize that you haven't reached out yourself. I mean, it's you have to be aware of not just your own loneliness, but the loneliness of others, and serve as a bridge. So it's just amazing. Ruthie also wanted to add in, we need to find our wilderness to know this self. And from David Hyman, thank you, Carmel. So there are many others who are enjoying this conversation and discussion with you, in addition to myself. So, you know, another section of your book is elderhood. And I would love for you to read an excerpt from that section, from that chapter as well, which is another very important key area of discussion for all of us.
Okay, in other cultures and times, old men and women were revered as wise elders, and they filled important social functions that fit their abilities. They passed on oral traditions in legend and song, knew where to find medicinal herbs and what they were good for, counseled the young and settled disputes. Nowadays, we go to court or mediation to resolve conflicts, a psychotherapist or spiritual teacher for personal advice, or a doctor or pharmacist for medicine. And if we want to learn about the past, we open computers or smartphones and type a word in a search engine. So what are we old people good for? In so many ways, we come up against prejudice and invalidation that undermine our feeling of self-worth. But when we become aware of these judgmental habits of our collective mind, we can refuse to act them out and define ourselves as we wish. What is the role of an elder? And how would we like to be remembered by others? Did you have the good fortune to meet people in their old age who wished you well, impressed you as wise, or made a gesture that still warms your heart? Who were the old people in your lives of whom you have fond memories? I have a particular memory from my mother in her later years that left a deep, endearing impression. Every single time I went to visit her and was about to leave, she would ask, "Is there anything I can give you to take home?" She asked this question out of her heart's generosity, even after she lost her mind. And it still sounds and reverberates in me. What have I to give to the people I care about? What can I offer? There is much suffering in the world. It is born of greed and selfishness, anger and fear, hatred and violence. Change takes place before our eyes so fast it can make one's head spin. Once upon a time, we were young and innocent, played hopscotch in the street, wrote long letters to friends, knocked on their doors without calling ahead of time, and worked from 9 to 5. It seems that the world then was more simple and less unjust, but that may just be nostalgia. The world moves as it does, for better or for worse. Sometimes we taste its honey, sometimes we feel its sting, and so we grow old, and here we are. Being the unique human beings that we are, who would we like to be? We have lived for many years and acquired life experience, skills, and abilities like nobody else. How do we want to spend the years that are left? What qualities do we bring to the world and our relations with others? What are the gifts that we have to share and love most? What have we learned about life that we feel is important to pass on to younger generations? In this age of rapid change, development, and instability, what is the heritage we would like to bequeath to future generations of humanity.
Sorry, just adding myself in. To that point, when discussing the topic of elderhood and what it means, you say that part of it means becoming a role model to younger generations for aging well. What have you learned about life that you feel is important to pass on to younger generations?
Well, I don't know. I'll separate the role model from something that, I don't know. I feel that I've lived with my generation in very dynamic times. And I know that we have all learned a lot through our lifetimes. And we're in the middle of a plague, at the height of digital revolution. And I don't know, well, I feel that there's also been, during the time of my life, an evolution in the human spirit. On the one hand, we see many evils in the world, and the dimensions can be quite alarming sometimes. But at the same time, I think that we have seen tremendous personal, emotional growth, the whole idea of emotional intelligence that was not there when we grew up. And I also think that one of the lessons that I've learned, and it's also something that the Dharma teaches, is that possessions don't really make much difference to the state of our happiness.
Very wise. Very true. By the way, Ruthie wanted to share this comment with you. She says, you really speak for us. Your insights about who we are and who we can be still for ourselves and for others. Thank you, Carmel. And then from Margot, it's very touching how you are sharing philosophical wisdom along with personal experience. Thank you. Thank you, Carmel. This is absolutely amazing, and we all feel very fortunate to get to hear your wisdom. Now, pulling from another area of your book, I really wanted to speak about joy, because I think that it is so much of the conversation around aging is focused on the negative, the I can't, I'm unable to, I'm scared, everything's changing. So I wanted to bring in that element of joy along with it, because I think that that's a really, really key area that we should remember to discuss as part of the whole aging journey.
Yes, well, first of all, we bring compassion to ourselves. But the practice of compassion also enhances our capacity to appreciate life.
Yes.
So I'll read something about that. Okay.
Thank you, Carmel.
Okay. If we have reached old age, we have had our share of wounds that left marks on our minds and bodies. We can acknowledge the harm that was indeed inflicted and the pain that still hurts. We have been wronged in various ways, disrespected, rejected, dismissed, abused, trodden upon, oppressed, and robbed of dignity. At the same time, just as we have been hurt by others, we have also hurt them. We are embedded in a richly embroidered tapestry of life in which living beings are prone to collide with one another, become injured and broken, and alas, sometimes even bleed to a violent death. Kind and compassionate attention to this suchness of life is a gift we can offer ourselves, a gesture of generosity that befriends and embraces imperfection and sheds a soft light of humility. It opens a space in which we can understand that we are disposed to imperfection because we are human. The more we open our hearts to suffering, the more they open to wonder, gratitude, and happiness. As we allow ourselves to be sensitive to our vulnerability, we also become sensitized to the delight of being alive. Much as a kind and caring heart trembles and resonates when it knows sorrow, so too it echoes and quivers with joy. We learn to rest in the present, appreciate things that fleetingly catch our attention, cultivate thankfulness and gratefulness, and replenish our hearts with the God of all small things. We are now reaching an age in which we, like our parents before us, may need help and support from others. There may well come a day in which I become dependent and reliant on the goodwill of others. I hope that then I will be able to find the generosity in my heart to be kind to those others, to let go of pride and vanity, humiliation, indignation, and resentment, and instead to give grateful thanks for what I am receiving and to appreciate, compliment, and cherish those who are giving it. But appreciation can also be a practice of kindness to ourselves. And I'd like to say a few free words on that. I was brought up in a Jewish tradition, in an observant household, and one of the things in Judaism is that the first thing one says when one wakes up in the morning is a prayer that thanks God for having restored us, restored our souls into our body after sleep, because sleep is also sort of a mystery of where, what is the relationship between consciousness and awareness and mind and spirit and soul and all that. So anyway, so it's like being asleep is like a kind of, it's not to be taken for granted that we will wake up in the morning. So when we do, we say thank you. And then there was another practice of appreciation that was part of the tradition, and that is that there was several seasons a year, or when we got new shoes or new clothes, or there was the first fruit of the season, there's a blessing that we say that thanks God for having sustained us to this moment. So this is a simple practice, and it can be part of our lives, just to bring attention to what is okay actually right now. But the problem is that we have a tendency to highlight what is wrong and pay much less attention to what is right. So one of the practices that I have done in hard times during periods is that before I go to bed, I count my blessings. I count blessings of the day. I sort of think, okay, 3 or 4 good things that were great today. And it works. It's good for a good night's sleep. So that's about joy. I think joy comes from appreciation.
I love that. So a question for you that I had was, if you say in your book that if we've reached old age, we've had our share of wounds that left a mark on our minds and bodies, but that you also must acknowledge that in your lifetime, you've caused harm to other people. What's your advice for dealing with past hurt and moving forward to experience joy in later life?
Well, I think it's also, I mean, these are ongoing processes. It's not that you do it once and for good. You do it again and again when you face those old pains and scars. They seem to surface time and again. And sometimes there are new injuries and new hurts that occur, so that it's an ongoing process of being very compassionate about it and allowing ourselves to listen to it, but reminding ourselves that we are the ones who are suffering most from this. So I think really the question is, how I think that we learn to forgive. I mean, there are so many inspiring examples of forgiveness, including, for example, of survivors of Auschwitz who found the ability to forgive. And the forgiveness is a gift that we give ourselves because it releases us from the burden of that story that we're telling ourselves over and over again, that scar that keeps reopening. And if we can just say, okay, if that's what happened, that's the way my life went, for better or for worse. Life has its ups and downs. And if we can just embrace the pains and the injuries, you know, there's this image in the Dharma as well of a mother, as if we are our mothers, our own mothers, holding our inner child in our arms, so that there's nothing we can really do to make a difference, but we can just bear witness to the pain. And there's something about that, about just bearing witness and being with, that weakens the hold of the pain in the body and in the memory, and eventually brings relief and release.
So, Carmel, that's beautifully said. A question came in from Margot. She says, what is your vision? How would you love your work to influence our world? Thank you, Margot, for your question.
Oh, gosh. I've moved on to other things. So I've sent out this book into the world, and it will have a life of its own. And I also believe that it will essentially pass by word of mouth from one friend to another. I don't really, I mean, I have discovered that what I love most is to write, and this is what I do, but I'm not writing about aging anymore. I'm writing about other stuff. But Margot, thank you so much for your questions. And Ruthie, thank you so much for your wonderful comments. And I really invite other people, please say something. I think we do have a few more minutes, is that not so?
We do, yes, we've got loads of time, and some more questions are coming in. So one that came in from Yale is aging different for women?
Who does this come from?
Sorry, let me unmute myself. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yale, Y-A-E-L.
From Yael. Okay, Yael.
My apologies for mispronouncing your name.
Yes, actually aging is a gendered, it has its gendered aspects, because actually women statistically live longer lives than men, approximately 4 years longer than men. So that most of the aging population are women.
So a question that came in from Annie Saunders. She says, there seems to me a tension between the radical side of the book, praising aging, yet there is also a quiet acceptance that is passive. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, yes, because for me, the key lesson that I learned from all my teachers of the Dharma is that discontent is the stuff of life. So there's that. It's not a passive. It's not passive. It's a clarity. It's a clarity that discontent is the stuff of life, and aging and dying are the stuff of life. So it's like a very clear vision of that. It's not a passive acceptance. Oh, no. No, it's like, yes, this is what is happening. So, and once we actually find the courage to face it squarely, we, again, I find that the dark times of life are often the greatest teachers.
True.
And I think that we can appreciate this now, again, in Corona times. These are dark times, and we are all meeting some hard truths. And these hard truths that we meet, if we don't flee them or distract ourselves from them, but actually allow ourselves to befriend them, to get to know them and befriend them, and allow them to just be for what they are. If we can, then we will learn something. With patience, we will learn something from that, because that's the nature of our consciousness. If we just don't fight it, if we let it be, we will be able to see some light at the end.
So Annie just responded, this is Annie's question. She said, but we are a generation who have money and time, and we could be really radical if we were clear as an aging movement.
Well, I don't know about movements. Can you put the chat up so I can see it? Because that was
Yeah. So it's
okay, great.
Can you see it up on the right hand side?
Okay, never mind. Can you read it again, please?
Yes, absolutely. So Annie says, but we are also a generation who have money and time, and we could be really radical if we were clear as an aging movement.
Well, yes, I don't know about a movement again. But I do know that, yes, I really feel that we are a privileged generation. And that, and I feel that it is our job to change the social attitudes about aging. I think that it's both a personal project, and if the personal project brings you into a collective project, then by all means, but let's just all embark on our personal projects for the time being and just be the elders that we think this society needs.
So this comment came in from Joan Gordon. Joan says, yes, without the darkness, we could not have the light. To face death as we live life, we will accept the ending of life as we lived it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just so happy, Joan, to hear you. I don't have anything to add. Beautifully said.
Beautifully said. And this also came in from Margot, a comment that's beautiful. Be the elders that we think this society needs. Yes.
Yes.
Well said, Margot. Any other questions, my new friends? Our new friends? Just type them into chat or let me know, and I'm happy to spotlight you. Margot says, Carmel said everything beautifully. Anything else, guys? Annie has a question. Anything to say about how to be the elders that we think society needs? How do we become the elders that we think society needs?
Well, I guess it means finding our own personal purpose and meaning in life. It needn't be anything grandiose. It might be like just tending the garden, you know. I think that because we are privileged, we have really an opportunity to just do what we love. But I would like to share something that I heard yesterday. It's from Etty Hilsum, who was a very inspiring person for me. Etty Hilsum was a Jewish young woman who wrote diaries during the time of the Nazi occupation in Amsterdam. And one of the things she writes is that helping others who are in similar predicament to me is a way of dealing with darkness and a way for finding meaning and purpose and happiness. Because again, I think that we really need to appreciate we all have exceptional gifts. Each and every one of us, we're unique in some way. And I think that we need to tap into our largest gifts and the ones we love most and share those with others.
Very well said, Carmel. From Joan, we need to listen rather than to determine and judge. From Ruth, you hit it on the mark, Carmel. And then also from Ruthie, I think awareness to our callings and running with whatever that is also to the point. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for joining. Unless anybody has any other questions, then we'll wrap things up for tonight. But Carmel, I would love to have more conversations with you about all of this. This has been absolutely brilliant, and it's been such a treat to get to be part of this conversation and to be part of this community for this evening. And Watkins is very, very honored and very privileged to be your publishers and to play our part in helping to make sure that the world sees your beautiful writing and hears your wisdom. So thank you for sharing it with us.
And thank you. Thank you for publishing it. It's exciting.
It is exciting. It's amazing.
Because just so that people know, some people don't know, it did come out in Hebrew originally a year and a half ago. So, but it's brilliant that it's coming out now in English. Yes.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Terry just wrote in, can we purchase the book directly from the publisher? Yes, you can. I will make sure that everybody who is on this call tonight, if you registered through Eventbrite, I will send you an email with a link to purchase the book. There was already a link included, but I'll resend it to you. And let you know some other places to buy it outside of Watkins if you would like. This has been amazing. One final question that Annie just sent in that I think is a really interesting one. Has the book had a different response in Israel than in the UK? Have you noticed a difference, Carmel, in terms of the conversation or, the subject matters or the chapters of the book that people find a particular kinship to?
Well, Annie, thanks, dear. You see, in Israel, it's been out for a year and a half, so I've had many reader responses, which are very, I guess, rewarding. So it's just come out now in the UK, and I'm hope that it's going to get to the USA and to other English speakers around the world. So let's hope that it will get to people who need to read it.
Yes, it is available in the US through Penguin Random House and globally as well. So we'll make sure that people see it. So thank you so much, Carmel. Again, this has been such a brilliant and inspirational and timely conversation in the midst of not just the holiday season, but in the midst of the year that we've all faced together. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you for sharing your book with all of us. It's been a treat. And on behalf of Watkins, we wish you all a very happy December and a very happy holiday season, whatever you celebrate and wherever you're celebrating around the world.
And just let me say thank you for all my friends who have been here. It's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And again, this has been recorded, so if you would like a recording, I'll make sure that you guys receive it, okay? Bye.